Hey guys, it's Kaylee, and as promised, today I am here to go over my new plotting system. So this looks incredibly complicated, and it kind of is, but at the same time, it's not once you get used to it. It is incredibly less complicated, like way less complicated than the serial system that I was using before. Bonus points, this system works for both books and for serials. I'm going to stop leaning on the table because I'm moving it. Okay. So I'm sorry about the sound of traffic if you hear it outside. Everything's open besides the window right next to us because it is incredibly hot in my apartment already. Anyway, so here we go. So normally I was using Katie Tastic's 2017 outline for writing novels. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over this for writing novels, and then I'm going to talk about how I adapted it to serials, and kind of how this came about. So what happened was I had created that previous plotting system for serials, and I found myself really bored with certain parts, and I realized that it wasn't escalating as fast or as hard as I wanted it to in certain places, and it wasn't giving me places where there was aha moments or oh my gosh, or like certain intense moments that help ratchet up the tension within a story. And it also was just kind of bland. And I hate saying that about something that I've made, but you know, when you first start cooking, you learn how to cook chicken, and then you learn how to spice chicken. Some people never get to the spicing the chicken, which, you know, okay. So anyway, this is my spicy chicken. Weird metaphor. Okay, anyway, so we start with the intro, pretty normal. Most plotting systems have that. And then I start with choice number 1. So this is the character choosing to jump into the situation or choosing to try not to jump into the situation. And I feel like that's a really great place to have the choices right there in the beginning, where the character is like, what do I want to do with this? Do I want to run away? Do I want to move forward? Is somebody I love in danger? It depends on what was in the intro. And then right after that, I want to be introducing the underlying conflict. And the underlying conflict just kind of is another like subplot. It's another layer to the story. It's like, you know, here's the main story, here's this story. Usually there's other ones that kind of branch out farther, the farther down you go and the more characters you have. But at the bare minimum, you need one underlying story that's kind of underneath it that helps set up why the character has the misbeliefs and things that they have about themselves or the world or whatnot. So we're introducing that, and then we're having the character regret pull back. So usually in the beginning of a story, a character has a moment where they're like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I'm capable of doing this. I don't know if I'm the person that should be doing this. I don't know if this is my responsibility. Any sort of kind of, maybe I shouldn't be doing this kind of situation, right? And this is usually right at the beginning. And then if you'll see these parts where there's different colors, that's because this system, of course, because I am ADHD, is modular. So number 5 is consequence number 1. And for consequence number 1, it could be right after the choice. It could be right after the intro. Like, okay, what happened in the intro caused a consequence that made them choose. So this kind of is modular. It can move anywhere along this first 8 scenes. Same thing with revelation number 1. So revelation number 1 might actually be in the intro. I definitely wouldn't make revelation number 1 right after the intro unless it's really, really exciting, because the intro is kind of where we're doing some world building, especially in fantasy. So we don't want to have a revelation right after a whole bunch of world building because that'll be incredibly boring. Unless the revelation is like kick you in your pants, like holy wow, scary or interesting or something like that. It could go up there, but generally speaking, I put these exactly where I think they should go, but I can move them if I need to. Let's put it that way. Number 7 is uncertainty. That is in black because there needs to be some moments where this character is beginning to, like the regret and the pullback, where they're like, I'm uncomfortable, I'm unsure, I don't know what I'm doing here. And then we have escalation number 1. So again, this is an escalation. This is usually somebody outside of the main character coming in and going, here's something that's going to affect everything else. It's an escalation, or it's a fight, or it's a underlying, you know, conflict, argument. It's something that escalates, because what we're looking for is an upward motion for tension, and each of these causes an upward spike in tension that can be dropped back down, right? But each of these can be moved within just this chunk. So, and then we jump over here, and this is the beginning of Act 2. And so we start with impotence number 1. This is another place where I kind of diverged from usual. This is where the character feels powerless. And it's not the same as regretting and pulling back, because regretting and pulling back is is more of a, like, I don't know if I can do this. Here is proof that your character cannot do this, or proof that whatever they're facing is too big. Too big for who they currently are. Then we get twist number 1. Then we get choice number 2. And then we jump into this new world. So this choice number 2 is going to bring them into this new world. Usually it is informed by this up here, but it could be informed by any one of these 3. Now, they are where I think they go best, but they can also be moved in through this 8 scenes. We've got revelation number 2, escalation number 2, and impotence number 2. Definitely, I would leave impotence number 2 down way below impotence up here, because we want them to feel powerless. We want them to have a growing kind of sense of themselves, and then, oh my gosh, I feel powerless again, which leads into the midpoint. So, because the midpoint is where the character has to stop and look at their situation and go, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. What I've been doing, I have to change or die, right? Change or die situation right there. So impotence number 2 probably should be in black, but it's in color because why not? Then we jump into 17, which is the new plan. So this is the consequence of this. However, right after it is consequence number 2, because it is the consequence that comes about from the new plan. So maybe they're going this way and they realize they need to veer that way. Well, the consequence of veering that way is that they run into a freaking dragon over here and they realize that they've done something that doesn't work. So now they need to veer this way. So then we get escalation number 3, again, modular, it can move around. We get impotence number 3. I would highly recommend it stays close to the middle of this second part of Act 2. Because it does, once again, we're creating moments where the character is shown to be powerless, which escalates the tension, but we don't want them too close together because then it feels completely hopeless. And we don't want that until down here. Then we get revelation number 3, and then here is underlying conflict chaos, which again can move anywhere in here, but we want something that brings this back up and brings back up the misbeliefs and what caused the misbeliefs, and we're having this character from the midpoint to this underlying conflict, we're having them work through some of these issues, right? They're having to face some of the reasons for why they believed what they believed. Then we get choice number 4 and escalation number 4. These are both in black because they need to be right here, because these 2 lead into the final act, which is pretty rigid. In fact, it's all the way rigid. So we get escalation number 4, and then we get twist number 2, and then we have our darkest moment, and then I changed it, like the right after darkest moment, to finding willpower, because it's not always about gathering people or about gathering your resources or whatnot. It's about finding out whether or not you have what it takes in your heart to keep going forward, even when you know that you might not win. Or, you know, it could be finding willpower in other people. It could be somebody else helping, but it's about finding the willpower to step forward one more time. And then it's to create the new plan, so new plan number 2. And then the underlying conflict needs to either be solved or set aside here. So it either needs to be something where, like, the fighting between 2 people is solved, or where the main character realizes, I don't need this person in my life, or I get to choose whether or not this conflict continues with me, and they set it aside or they solve it before heading into the final battle, because they need this to not be on their plate anymore. And then they jump into the battle, the climax, and then the resolution, which is, you know, pretty normal. So this works. I came up with a system while plotting. I plotted out kind of a novel or 2 on it, and then I plotted out a serial on it, which is how we ended up with When the Darkness Grins, my newest book in my first zombie serial. It's wild. So, and I was playing with this system with with a book and with that, and it really, really, really works, especially being modular. I can kind of move some things around. But this wildly works. So for a novel, what I would do is each of these would be kind of a pivotal moment in time or a scene. And then I would plug things in between the scenes to, like, smooth from this to this part to this part. Like, how do we get here? How do we get here? How do we get here? So there's a lot more scenes than this, but these are the main, like, jumping off points for where I would head next after I've, like, let's say I've finished regret and pull back. Let's jump into consequence number 1. That kind of a thing. For a serial, these are actually 2 episodes per each plotting point. So we've got the escalation up to the plotting point, and then dealing with the plotting point and kind of dropping down, and then the escalation to this next plotting point and dealing with the consequences of that. And it kind of jumps up and runs a lot longer than a novel would, but it's still building as we go. And I was doing each of these as just one episode. I was like, okay, one episode is fine. But I found out that when posting on Royal Road or things like that, doing serialized episodic fantasy, you want to post between 1,500 to 2,500 words. And each of these in a serial, if you want it to be long, if you want it to really have the emotional impact that a serial has, it needs to be a lot longer. So each of these is about 3,000 to 5,000 words long, each of these points. The build up to it and the actual point itself and the drop down. So I've been cutting them up. I've been chopping them in half. So this is actually, oh, that's 32, not 33. Whatever. Anyway, so this is actually 64 episodes. Now, sometimes one of these will, like, you can't write any more about it. So I've got a couple of episodes where, like, I dropped it down. So it was at 62 episodes. But then I had an episode that jumped and split itself into 2 extra episodes. So it's like, it kind of moves as you're going where you need more. So always follow your instincts on it. Always take it as a guidelines. These are guidelines. They're not rules. And very definitely, like, if this is too much for you, don't do it. Like, for me, this works really well because it gives me my next point of what's the next aha, what's the next big thing, what's the next punch in the face for the reader or for my protagonist, or, you know, what's the next thing that's going to move this forward in a way that's really exciting. The whole point of this is to continuously be building excitement and tension and drama and that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I have to know what's next. This is what this is designed for, which is why there's no real downtime. There's areas where, like in the story, if you guys go and read it once it launches, there are areas where things slow down, where like she's outside of the danger zone and she's kind of digesting things that she's learned. There are parts in there, but then there's revelations in those parts where she learns things, or she's healing, or she laughs, or she's working through what she's just gone through. So there are like lower points that need to be built into any story, but these kind of give you the high points. So then you're like, okay, what's my next kind of calmer point? And you can kind of build those in between. So anyway, that's how I'm using this. It's totally complicated. I was going to print it out. You guys ended up with my small version of it in my bullet journal, because I tried to print it out and my printer decided that my gray ink doesn't work with my printer anymore, apparently. And so I can't print because I need new gray ink. Wild. Anyway, it's going to be fine. I'm going to figure that out and I'm going to move on with my life. So if you guys like this, I can, I don't think I'm going to link it below, but you guys can copy it. You can use it. Use it. Use it all you want. Like, I don't care. Just make sure, like, if you guys use it in something, to tag me or something. Just, you know, I want to see how far it goes. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will be back 2 weeks from now.